I'm RevivingFairy, High Priest of the Lost City of Zuma. Today's game answers the fears modern society has. Fears such as, are there skeletons in my closet? And if I just take the land of other people, sidestepping the need for diplomacy, will I be punished? In this game, we make empires out of what normies don't want. What civilized society cannot even begin to imagine is a way of living. That's right, we are dungeon custodians. We're not just here to make a living for our fellow hippies. We're here to do unto others as they have done to us. It's not because they've wronged us or our ancestors. No, it's because at all of our hearts, even the hearts of human-shaped creatures, we're all hunter-gatherers. I'm not in it for evil or for debauchery. I'm in it to create paradise that no free man will dare desecrate. Welcome to Dungeon Keeper 2, where it's good to be bad. This early 3D game portraying the game SimCity but 6 feet under was released in 1999 by Bullfrog Productions. The genre of this game is a little hard to nail down. Yes, it's a dungeon manager. I could just say that, but also, do you know how many games qualify for that? So it's a real-time strategy, right? Maybe, if you don't think actual strategic battles are a part of that. That's not why I love this game. I love this game because you can make your own thriving dungeon that's hostile to tourists. So in that sense, it's like a city builder. It can also be very comfy with how low pressure the game is, even when it starts trying to stop you from doing evil. In fact, Dungeon Keeper 1 and 2 were actually quite the commercial successes, and they were innovators of the time. But Rev, I hear you think, if it's so good, why isn't there a Dungeon Keeper 3? Well, Smarty Pants, there is one. They were making it at the time of 2's release, so we even got a trailer for what it would be like once finished. It then released in 2014. As a mobile freemium whaling ship instead of an actual game. How the fuck did that happen? Oh, you know, Bullfrog Productions got its deal to even make Dungeon Keeper by selling its soul to the devil. Electronic Arts. Remember kids, there's a reason merger rhymes with murder. What's really fucked up is that mobile trash only got taken down August 2022. If I was quicker, we could have asked if this was a better use of your time than Genshin Impact. Okay, let's not focus on that. Instead, let's focus on this voice.
In my long and evil existence, I have never witnessed a sight as magnificent as horny in full killing frenzy.
Listen to him. Isn't he dreamy? He also helps teach you how to build a dungeon, and also give you updates on how your dungeon is doing. Does he have anything to do with why you're on a crusade against good? No. There's a story? No, there isn't. Believe me, I tried to find a compelling reason to explain why I'm digging a hole in the ground. The cosmic truth I found is the same truth I found reading the back of this game's CD case. Instead, I invite you to start striking down heroes by the truckload, because this isn't a game with a message to share. It's a low-hanging comedy act, though honestly, the humor isn't that bad. In this game, you roleplay someone already indoctrinated to zap first and ask questions never. The stereotypical medieval power fantasy is to be a heavily armed knight, blessed by a higher power to slaughter all that dare oppose the right way of living. You'll be happy to know the other side of this stereotype is the exact same thing. To this end, there's no difference between being good and being bad, which is why anti-heroes were more fun to write about until we eventually realized we still can't write characters. This game is set up in such a way that you can hit new campaign, just throw yourself right into the depths, and you'll do pretty alright. I'm not too sure whether to call this a good thing or a bad thing, but the game is very slow to start as it meticulously teaches you how to play and what everything does for the first quarter of the 20-level campaign. Once it trusts that you can solve a skeleton in a cage, the campaign starts waking up. In a sense, it introduces new rooms and creatures a drop at a time and gives you enough time to learn and make use of them. Here, you must use Summon House Service to strike the earth and carve out a compound to house your swag and your gang. Good, evil, I appreciate that everyone delegates housework to the meek. For these imps, they are literally made of your mana, so they can't complain. You're going to then have those same imps cart off the excavated gold to your coffers, claim the tiles of your newly excavated dungeon, sown for minion suites and poultry industries, and touch a hole in the ground. Doing so posts every job you have available to the medieval glass door and gets you exciting things like a fly. Can they fight? Yeah, like other imps. And that's it. These units require bed, board, and workforce training to be effective minions for your cause. You also need gold as well, because this game will regularly inform you of the worst sentence an American entrepreneur can ever hear in his life.
It is payday.
When this happens, your minions will take a cut from your treasuries, depending on who they are and how qualified they are. This does impose a sort of time limit to each level, but this is usually very generous because the campaign never gives you such a tight budget that you must be that much of a miser. Hell, later on you can just make gold with mana, and there's gold, sure, but that runs out. Once you pop these gem rocks though, the fun does not stop. For performing basic dungeon tasks, we have 2 clicks. The left one mines out tiles to mine, places down buildings, and picks up creatures, either from the screen or from your unit toolbar. The right one drops those creatures, cancels out of building mode, and puts that hand to good use. There's actual mechanical purpose for being addicted to battery. Nothing like a little love tap to motivate your minions to work harder. There's obviously the downside of making them upset that you are violating worker rights, but your imps, like I said, they can't complain. So an efficient dungeon abuses the silent majority to ensure compliance and efficiency. And I think that's what they meant by the tagline, "It feels good to be bad." Once you build the correct rooms, you can expect to get the minion associated with those rooms. If you have several of these qualifications, you just flip a coin on which minion you get. This can be undesirable, especially if you pay attention to the fact that many minions are useful for the dungeon, except the one associated with just a lair, goblins and the flies that love them. They are a no-nonsense melee unit that has no spine and combat stats slightly better than their flies. This is why they're usually a low priority summon. The way to fix your bad Q manipulation? Throw it back in the trash. The way to fix it economically? The most expensive building in the game, also the last building you unlock in the campaign. Instead, I suggest a cooler way to fix the vagrants that showed up, putting them to good use. Why care about the queue? Because depending on the number of portals you own, you can have up to a certain amount of creatures. Once you hit that number, you'll no longer get any for free. This presents a game where you don't micromanage factories, build queues, or manage supply caps, because that is 100% automated for you. Instead, if you want to choose what you get, you will need to strategically build and expand your facilities to manipulate what comes out, like how many T-posing magicians you receive. I am telling you this despite the fact that this game is for a baby, because it saves a lot of undue stress trying to make an actual fighting force that isn't just old men and their manservants. I mean, the game will constantly nag you when you don't have large enough rooms for your minions' needs, like demanding you make a large enough training room to suit your entire army, ensuring you also get a lot of lizards with your new purchase. Salamanders are what you get with a training room and are better in every way than goblins, but are still simple expendable chaff that likes to take up every single slot in your army. This is why we still have a build order despite everything. The problem is the training room is kind of vital for early leveling, with the only other alternatives being actual warfare or a fight club you have to babysit, because trust me, the game will leave your minions that lost the hell in a cell match out to die if you don't keep your eyes on the fight. How do you prevent that from happening? Well, you build a library and have your minions read you bedtime stories. I know we're the ones who literally made it and they contain all spells we can use, but that would imply we have eyes to read with. This gives you things like a bunch of spells I don't care about. Instead, I get it for heal and Thunderbolt, which is really funny in this game. It's simple. Zap an enemy in your dungeon for damage. What the game does not tell you, for fear of you breaking a lot of challenges in this game, is you zap something, it gets knocked down. You keep zapping something, it stays knocked down. If they send a single knight screaming about the good of his kingdom at you, you don't even need a SWAT team. Just send a reptile out and then give him the touch of God until he stops stops resisting arrest. Early on, your reward for killing heroes is going to be the execution points of it all. That and the pocket change they were holding on to. Later on, though, we can reach greater amounts of human rights violations. We can build our own dungeon and get our own minions out of the hole, sure, but what's stopping us from taking theirs? All minions have health bars, and they enter a dying state once they go down to the last petal of their health flower. And yes, they call it a health flower. During this point, if you wanted to save your minion, you will need them on your territory and an imp to do a rescue operation. Yes, the imp. No one else. Did they go down in enemy territory? The host. Was it a keeper's turf? Well, don't worry. You might see them again. You see, no cruelty is too cruel for us, and enemies that die in our borders are subject to being incarcerated in a dungeon within our dungeon, if you will. We then leave them as POWs that we just conveniently forget to feed until they become nothing but skin and bones. And the skeleton inside thanks us for its freedom and works for us, asking for no pay or even living arrangements. No wonder necromancers love him. It's just the only unit that dies outright upon going down. Man, at least we don't subject our prisoners to long torture sessions to extract as much information as possible from them. Oh no, wait, that's actually next door.
I'm hired for people to fulfill their fantasies, their deep, dark fantasies.
Capturing and converting is a big part of this game, as it allows you to cheat the unit cap by turning the trash into skeletons and the rest into your own minions after leaving them in the pleasure dome for a while. Torture chambers also attract our source of lightning spam. Not to mention, mistresses are just really good rogue type units that can shred people up close provided they aren't focused down. Just handle with care. They don't mind getting touched as long as it's a firm, supportive, authoritative touch and not a grubby pervert hold. That's the major elements of this game. What else do we got? Well, we have trolls for building traps. Half of them are useless and the trolls have a criminally awful work ethic. You micromanage if you want defenses, since dropping a unit where you want them to be tends to get them to do the thing you want them to do. Usually. Though the other half of defenses that aren't useless are quite important for proper management. Like for example, the only way to stop your imps from walking into every hero and sentry gun in the map is to build a door, lock it, and then throw away the key for later. There's like 5 of these, and I never use anything other than the most basic one, because stall enemies, I can't hear you over the herd of cats I'm trying to wrangle. You also have to use trolls, which are as bad as fighting as fireflies. Bile demons can forge traps as well. Never mind that they're actually worse at it, they are even slower than trolls. That's why I refuse to build a large enough hatchery to feed my minions properly. As your numbers swell, ensuring they stay happy becomes quite important. How do we give our minions something to be happy over? Simple. We finally take the game's advice to put in microtransactions. Casinos destroy your minions' work ethic in exchange for either making them happy or taking their cash back. Of course, taking all the money for yourself defeats the purpose of the casino. It's not for making money back or satisfying your minions. No, it's for when someone eventually hits the big one and gets paid a large sum of gold while everybody nearby celebrates by dancing. It's honestly one of the most hyped things about this game when the voice yells,
"Jackpot winner!"
and I and everyone else is distracted by the strike of fortune. Also, thanks to this game, Disco Inferno has now been ingrained into my head again. Anything stronger than a mistress is typically the best units in the game, whose only restrictions are the price tag on the buildings associated with them. Make a graveyard 6 feet under and dump corpses in it to get a vampire, who, so long as it's not level 1, is immortal and will just wake up if it dies and wonder what sort of crazy dream it had. Cause good luck getting your imps to actually touch corpses. Fight Club also attracts the good melee unit in the game, the Black Knight. And finally, just because we're ruthlessly evil and savage to all we declare beneath us, doesn't mean we don't go to church. In addition to giving us dark angels, which are absolutely ridiculous at level 1, we can also perform hand alchemy to unfuck our army composition. Did you order 13 lizards because you thought it was funny? That's okay. 2 of them turn into a mistress in God's palm. There's Horadric cube recipes for this stupid thing. Most of them are straight downgrades. I think I found the only easy and useful one on my first time actually messing with this. Well, guess that just means I'm a good gamer. Once you finally get these creatures leveled up and ready for action, how do you kill in this game? The thing is, you can't give commands to anything directly, save for one exception, a call to arms spell that gives you a flag that will force all units to beeline to it. I'm pretty sure I make my army actively worse using this, because when I say beeline, I mean they will walk right by any enemies, traps, imps along the way, single-mindedly going towards the flag. The only things they stop for are doors in the way, and when I am trying to assault an enemy fortress, perhaps I want them to do more than mouse 1 and W, especially when they all get stuck on each other. Luckily, you can always pick up every creature of yours provided they aren't dying, to extract and reposition them back on your turf. This makes imp bodyguards pretty important, as the whims of our workers tend to determine how entire wars play out. Not to mention they're expensive to replace. Just because I deprive them of rights doesn't mean I won't mourn the loss of work experience. So what if you have to go nuclear over this? Well, mana is what you spend to cast spells and create more imps. The more landmass you claim, the faster you gain mana. Once you have at least the 100,000 upfront costs and the talisman in the campaign, you can summon Huani. Huani is invincible. Completely. The downside to Huani is he's completely uncontrollable, and he will default to beelining to the objective and then getting distracted by a creature or trap here and there. On the other hand, if he doesn't just kill your opponent outright, he is a very good problem solver. Huani is also the person you keep on feeding these shiny rocks to. Every level ends with him showing up, and I'm pretty sure every level ends with some sort of graphical or audio glitch as he slowly appears and saunters up to the portal gem. He'll even despawn and respawn if he's already out after he killed the Lord of the Land with the gem. Campaign will be largely against the forces of good, specifically whoever has the Fruity Pebble, either the Landlord or other Dungeon Keepers, because our boss has, as a prank, made many Keepers to all either die to the forces of good, or, realizing we both have portal gems, stab each other for all of them. You can expect to do things like having to do a sneaky mission inside an enemy fortress, or you have 15 minutes to smash this Keeper in the face and take his gem, before the heroes smash both your faces in and take all of your gems. If that sounds like too much for you, I have good news. This is a real-time strategy game, but My Pet Dungeon allows you to build and cultivate dungeons with zero pressure whatsoever. Buildings will unlock gradually as you continue digging and exploring, and most dangers to you are just whatever you pull out of this box, which is entirely at your control. This is what I like Dungeon Keeper 2 for. Comfy, wholesome dungeon architecture, and watching as my minions grow and prosper, feeding them on occasion as well. Aesthetically, because it's in the Bermuda Triangle of PC gaming, it actually looks really good. It was also nearly impossible to emulate for many years, because it only worked on Windows 98 through ME. The good old games copy was non-functional for a while as well, until they patched the graphics driver with their own custom driver to get it to finally run on Windows XP, 7, and 10. They sealed away these graphics. They were afraid of how cutting edge they were. When they work, the modeling and texture work is very impressive for its time. The sound is as well, when the audio is not stuttering, which I've since learned is because my hardware is too advanced. They couldn't even comprehend the ability to have multiple cores in a CPU. So if you also have this happening, I suggest making sure your program has access to your full computer. I like its sounds, not because they're professionally made and impactful, but because I love zipping through a dungeon to regularly get a blast of portal sound effect. If it's not that, it's gonna be the same sounds I hear at the main menu. Maybe I'm biased because I find all the laughing skeletons I heard throughout the game calming to my soul. I also do like its music, and it's a 1998 game that does layered songs that go in intensity the more action there is. That's wild, but there is a paltry amount of music for this game, so it's hard to really praise it. What they did make was really good. It's the same like 2 songs the entire campaign, though. You can really get to appreciate the graphics when you activate first-person mode and take over one of your units. Possession is something I just remembered, because I want to forget it exists because I hate it's an integral part of the game, because it's quite buggy and clunky to use. It's amazing against enemies. You literally cheat to attack and dodge out of the way. You can also conscript other minions to form a raiding party. This feature forces me to practice social distancing though to be able to recruit anyone. They are much slower than me, and I am moving faster than I can perceive, including faster than my party. I like the concept, but I don't understand the point. Or rather, why I need to use this to do most of the more complicated things my minions cannot do on their own. And yeah, that's a good segue into criticism. Your units are stupid. Very stupid. They only care about enemies when they can see them. The options you get to set up patrol networks and militias? Worthless. Useless. Tends to get your minions killed anyway because they'll still split up from each other and they still need to bake for snacks. I don't know what Dark Elves do as a result because I never use God Rooms when I can play this game like an RTS and do their work for them. 3 to 5 second stun when you drop a creature? Try dropping them better next time to get around that. The lack of brains isn't just in your units either. When the game just sends heroes to either wander around aimlessly until they find trouble or beeline straight to your heart, it's crude but effective gameplay. They tried to write an AI for enemy keepers. Machines have not yet learned how to interface with anything, let alone humanoids. So you'll regularly see their entire army protesting outside their house because you stole their beer recently, forgetting about things like food, rest, salary. I will take their civil demonstration into consideration as I prepare to summon another demon to steal the whole fridge this time. No, really, the AI in Dungeon Keeper is bad. There are skirmishes for individual matches, but none of the AI can really hold their own if you have any semblance of skill. I've been told previous versions made them better, and there's a mod to give you the best of both old and new patches, but I'm pretty sure they're still terrible. I guess there's also multiplayer as well, but I don't know a whole lot about it because it was a bitch and a half to set up in the past, and the one time I played it was back before I realized one Black Knight is worth 3 salamanders. Oh yeah, also the campaign design is kinda sus. I've mentioned anything involving a keeper is a non-challenge because they will trip on themselves before ever threatening you. Outside of that, remember that level where I said you had 50 minutes to skip across a hero fort and slugbug the opposing keeper before the cops come? I lied when I said 50 minutes. I meant 30. Yes, it says 50. That's just how much time you have before you auto-fail, which is a weird thing to check for because, sir, I think you have enough heroes to kill anything, especially the other keeper, where you do lose if the heroes kill him for you. Also, there are multiple levels where I must utilize sneakiness to avoid failing. The only ways I've been able to do that is if I locked all my cats in a box and then use possession to play a really bad Metal Gear Solid. If you come in expecting a quality RTS, you will be disappointed because the lack of control and bugs make actual strategy shallow. I know at this point there's been advances in control schemes for strategy games, but look man, Bulk Fog Productions were working for Satan. They didn't have the free will or energy to learn from games like StarCraft or Doom 2. Instead, the charm of this game and why it's a cult classic is from its macro management, training and sending out Pokemon to smash, grab, and torture all who would oppose you. This includes heroes you convert, which I haven't said a lot of because I tend to not use them unless I have to, because you can wash their brain, you can't unwash their bodies, so they stop making your evil creatures feel inadequate. It does a solid enough job that it's actually a good entry point into RTSs, what with there not being a lot of need for controlling every unit's actions and just focusing on what to build first and where to send your workers. But why buy this game as opposed to many others after it? Because it's $7 normally. Hell, right now on Good Old Games, it's $1.50. That's more value than playing a modern arcade game that lasts about 30 minutes at best, versus this game that lasts over 20 hours if you play campaign all the way through. That's why I give this game 6 goblins out of a single knight in shining armor. I recommend it, if nothing else, for the bleeding edge graphics of its cinematics, which it has a lot of, and I didn't mention in my review until now because one has already finished now that I have finished explaining why. This game is like a time portal back into an era where this genre is still barely fleshed out and set in stone, but I can say that plenty of people had a love for it back then, and today I can say with certainty that this genre is still pretty untapped. As one of the few fairies you'll meet in your life, I wouldn't mind playing more games about dungeon cultivation, because if I can irrationally love this game despite its flaws, then it did something I liked. What's that? You say you're singing another fairy behind me right now? That's not a fairy. Thanks for watching. This trite is highly experimental and I have zero idea if anyone is going to care about it. That's why it was made by me, for me, because I've earned it. Though, if you made it this far, then perhaps, maybe, I did something right for once. If you do believe that, then I hope to review and recommend another game for you. What do I talk about? Oh, you know, games about calling life on this planet. Human life, preferably. If that sounds like something you enjoy listening to, feel free to subscribe so you'll get instant notification of the next crime against humanity I commit. Until that time comes though, all I ask is that you take care of yourself and you have a good day.